Okay, here's something that might make you stop and think.
Mm-hmm.
Around the world, the number of men having trouble starting a family, it's going up slowly year after year, maybe like 0.5%. But listen to this. Since 2000, things seem to have really kicked into higher gear.
Right.
The average sperm count dropping by over 2.5% every single year.
That's a significant acceleration.
Exactly. So, what is going on here? And that's what this deep dive is all about, this growing worry about male infertility.
Yeah.
Now, you've probably seen headlines or heard things about this. Our goal today is to cut through the noise. We look at, the scientific papers, global health reports, all the latest research on causes and treatments.
You're trying to get the full picture.
Yeah, the mission is to pull out the really important stuff, why this is happening, what can actually be done, and make it super clear, give you actionable insights.
And it's definitely not a small issue we're talking about. The World Health Organization, the WHO, they estimate about, 1 in 6 adults of reproductive age face infertility challenges globally.
1 in 6. Wow.
And a significant chunk of that involves male factors. Looking back at, say, 2021, we're talking over 55 million men worldwide likely dealing with infertility.
55 million.
And the trend line, if you look from 1990 right through to 2021, the prevalence, the number of cases per year, it's just been steadily climbing.
That's a huge number of people affected. And you mentioned it varies globally. It's not the same picture everywhere.
That's right. It's quite varied. The steepest increase in male infertility cases seems to be happening in what they call low to middle socio-demographic index areas. So not the wealthiest countries.
Okay, so maybe environmental factors or lifestyle things playing a bigger role there.
That's what it suggests, doesn't it? It makes you wonder. But here's a contrast. The fastest increase in female infertility. That's actually been seen in the high STI regions, the wealthier countries.
Mm-hmm. That is different.
It really points towards potentially different drivers for male and female infertility, maybe linked to socioeconomic factors, different societal pressures, maybe different environmental exposures or access to care even.
So it's not just one single story.
Exactly. It suggests we need to look at the nuances, different contexts, different causes.
Right. But I also came across something that seemed, a bit contradictory. A U.S. study, I think, saying sperm counts in men without known fertility problems have actually been pretty stable recently. How does that fit in?
Yeah, that's a really good point about how we interpret the data. That particular U.S. study focused on a, let's say, select group men who didn't already have known fertility issues.
Okay.
So it might capture the men who were fertile earlier and then develop problems later on. And those are the kinds of cases contributing to that overall global rise we were talking about.
I see. So they were looking at a potentially healthier baseline group to start with.
Precisely. Plus, how we measure sperm parameters has become more standardized over time, which can also make comparing older and newer studies a bit tricky. It's not always apples to apples.
Got it. That makes sense. You miss the shift if you only look at one group. Now, China. There was something surprising there too, right? Like a reversal of the trend.
Yes, that's fascinating. Apparently, after an initial increase, the burden of male infertility in China actually started decreasing after 1994.
Decreasing. Against the global trend.
Exactly. And projections suggest it might continue to decline. It really stands out.
Why? Any ideas?
Well, it strongly suggests that local factors, maybe policy changes, environmental cleanup efforts, shifts in lifestyle, perhaps access to healthcare can make a real difference. We definitely need more research to understand exactly what happened in China.
Okay, so mostly rising trends, but some exceptions that show maybe things can be turned around. Let's dig into the why now. What's driving this general increase? Environment seems like a big suspect, especially these endocrine disrupting chemicals, EDCs.
EDCs, yes. They're a huge area of concern. Basically, these are chemicals that can interfere with our body's hormones. And they're kind of everywhere.
Like where? What kind of things?
Think about phthalates and BPA. They're often in plastics, food packaging. Then you have pesticides and herbicides on food crops. Heavy metals like lead, cadmium, arsenic, they can be in food, water, even cosmetics.
Wow.
And industrial solvents too, from certain workplaces. All of these have been linked in studies to potential negative impacts like lowering testosterone levels and harming semen quality. It's like a constant low-level exposure.
It is a bit scary how common they are. And it's not just things we touch or eat, is it? Air pollution too.
Absolutely. Poor air quality is another major factor being looked at. We're talking about particulate matter, those tiny particles, PM2.5 and PM10 plus gases like nitrogen dioxide, sulfur dioxide, ozone.
How do they affect sperm?
Studies have linked higher exposure to these pollutants with reduced sperm motility. How well they swim increased DNA fragmentation, so damage to the genetic material, and even issues with chromatin structure inside the sperm.
So the quality takes a hit.
Yes. That China study you mentioned earlier also found a significant link between higher levels of PM2.5 and PM10 and poorer sperm movement.
Just breathing the air.
Yeah.
Hey, what about other environmental stuff? People sometimes talk about radiation, maybe from phones or laptops, or heat.
Yeah, the radiation question, it's still debated. The impact isn't totally clear, but some research does suggest a possible link to lower sperm count and motility. Heat is more established, though.
Heat.
Increased ambient temperatures, heat waves likely linked to climate change, have shown negative effects on sperm quality in animal studies, and there's growing evidence in humans, too. The testes need to be slightly cooler than the body, right?
Right.
There's also a broader concern that maybe our current safety testing for chemicals isn't rigorous enough when it comes to reproductive health effects down the line. And a really critical point here is maternal exposure. When a pregnant woman is exposed to these environmental toxins, it can potentially impact the development of her male fetus's reproductive system, setting the stage for fertility issues later in his life.
So effects can start even before birth.
Potentially, yes. And there's even research into epigenetic changes, modifications to how genes work, not the genes themselves, that could possibly be passed down across generations.
That's quite a thought. Problems today affecting future generations.
Okay, let's shift to things maybe more within our individual control lifestyle. Obesity seems to be a recurring theme.
It really does. There's a pretty strong link. Having a body mass index, or BMI, of 30 or higher, which is the clinical definition of obesity, is associated with impaired sperm parameters.
Like what specifically?
Lower sperm concentration, reduced motility, more abnormal shapes, and often hormonal imbalances too. And since global obesity rates have been rising dramatically.
It's likely a contributing factor to the rise in infertility. Makes sense. Yeah, carrying excess weight seems to disrupt several bodily systems, including the reproductive ones.
And diet ties into that, I imagine. Beyond just weight.
Definitely. What you eat matters. Diets high in saturated fats, processed meats, that sort of thing have been linked to poor sperm quality.
Okay.
On the flip side, diets rich in fruits, vegetables, whole grains, healthy fats like those in fish and nuts, basically. Diets high in antioxidants seem to be protective. Good fuel helps the system run better.
More plants, less processed stuff.
Got it.
Got it. What about smoking? Vaping?
Oh, absolutely detrimental. Smoking tobacco, and, yes, vaping too, introduces numerous toxic chemicals into the body. This is clearly linked to lower sperm count, worse motility and morphology, and significantly increased DNA fragmentation in sperm.
So quitting smoking is a big one for fertility.
One of the biggest lifestyle changes, yes. And alcohol isn't harmless either. Excessive alcohol consumption can lower testosterone levels and negatively impact sperm production and quality.
Moderation is key there. And what about other drugs, recreational ones?
Yes, marijuana use has been associated with adverse effects on sperm quality and hormone levels. Other recreational drugs can also pose risks. And anabolic steroids. They're particularly problematic.
Why steroids specifically?
Because they're used to build muscle, right? They mimic testosterone, but they actually signal the body to shut down its own natural testosterone and sperm production. This suppression can be severe and sometimes long-lasting, even after stopping the steroids.
Wow. Okay. That's a serious side effect. Are there other, maybe less obvious lifestyle things? Stress, sleep?
Yes, absolutely. Chronic high stress levels can disrupt hormone balance, potentially affecting sperm production. Insufficient sleep can do the same. And then there's the heat thing again, but from lifestyle choices, things like wearing very tight clothing, prolonged sitting, frequent use of hot tubs or saunas, anything that consistently overheats the scrotum can impair sperm production.
It really sounds like a lot of factors add up. Okay, besides environment and lifestyle, what about underlying medical conditions?
Oh, there's a long list of medical issues that can contribute. Problems directly with sperm production, making too few, none at all, or sperm that don't swim well or are misshapen. That's a big category.
Okay.
Varicocele, those are swollen veins in the scrotum, surprisingly common, can impair sperm quality. Infections are another one. Things like epididymitis, orchitis, or sexually transmitted infections can cause inflammation and blockages.
Infections, right.
Then there are issues with ejaculation, like retrograde ejaculation, where semen goes into the bladder. Hormonal imbalances are key, maybe problems with the pituitary gland or thyroid. Genetic conditions play a role too, like Klinefelter syndrome, cystic fibrosis gene mutations, or deletions on the Y chromosome.
So genetics can be a direct cause.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Also, physical blockages in the reproductive tract, the body mistakenly creating antibodies against its own sperm, cancers or tumors affecting the reproductive organs, or even treatments for cancer like chemotherapy or radiation. Other things include a history of undescended testicles, chronic diseases like kidney failure or celiac disease, certain medications, previous surgeries in the pelvic area, or direct injury to the testicles. And you mentioned diabetes earlier.
Yes. How exactly does diabetes impact things?
Diabetes, particularly when blood sugar isn't well controlled, causes a state of oxidative stress throughout the body. In terms of fertility, this high sugar environment can directly damage sperm DNA, reduce motility, and impair the whole process of sperm creation, spermatogenesis.
It damages the sperm itself and the production line.
Exactly. It can also mess with hormone levels necessary for sperm production and even alter the composition of the seminal fluid that nourishes and transports sperm. There's also emerging evidence about potential epigenetic changes linked to diabetes affecting sperm.
Epigenetic again. Interesting.
And there's even a thought, maybe a bidirectional link. Some research suggests poor semen quality might, in some cases, be an early indicator of underlying issues with insulin resistance, potentially predicting future diabetes risk.
Wow. So semen quality as a potential health marker beyond just fertility. Fascinating. Okay. So clearly lots of potential causes. How are doctors getting better at pinpointing the specific problem for an individual? What's new in diagnosis?
Well, the standard semen analysis looking at count, motility, morphology under a microscope is still fundamental, but it has limitations. It doesn't tell the whole story.
Right.
So we now have much more sophisticated genetic testing available. We can screen for specific chromosomal abnormalities or gene mutations known to cause infertility.
Going deeper than just looking at the sperm.
Exactly. And we talked about epigenetics. Now, there are tests being developed, like the epigenetic sperm quality test, or Sperm QT, that look at these epigenetic markers on sperm DNA as an indicator of sperm health and fertility potential.
Okay.
There are also non-invasive techniques looking at cell-free DNA in seminal plasma to predict, for example, the chances of successfully retrieving sperm surgically in men with azoospermia or no sperm in the ejaculate.
Predicting success before surgery. That's useful.
Very. And then there are the omics technologies, proteomics, metabolomics. These allow scientists to analyze all the proteins or metabolic products within sperm cells or seminal fluid to find biomarkers associated with infertility, like getting a detailed molecular snapshot.
Sounds very high-tech.
Yeah.
Is AI involved here too? Artificial intelligence.
Yes, AI and machine learning are making big strides in andrology. They're being used for automated semen analysis, making it potentially more objective and consistent than human assessment.
Computers analyzing sperm.
Essentially, yes. And AI models are also being developed to predict the likelihood of success with different fertility treatments based on semen parameters and other patient data. They can sometimes spot subtle patterns a human might miss.
Interesting. What about those home testing kits? Are they reliable?
Point-of-care tests and mail-in kits are becoming more common. They can offer convenience and privacy, maybe give a basic idea of sperm count or motility, but they generally don't provide the comprehensive picture you'd get from a full clinical evaluation. They're a starting point, perhaps, but not a substitute for seeing a specialist.
Good to know. Any other new diagnostic tools?
There are some novel functional tests emerging, like one called the Spicer test, which actually assesses the sperm's ability to fuse with an egg membrane, a crucial step for fertilization. And imaging techniques like ultrasound and sometimes MRI are still vital for checking the structural integrity of the reproductive organs, looking for blockages or varicosities.
So a much bigger diagnostic toolkit now, which leads us to treatment. If a cause is found, what are the latest options? Let's start with, say, medical management.
Okay. If the issue is hormonal imbalance, doctors can use various medications. Clomiphene citrate, letrozole, HCG, FSH injections, aromatase inhibitors. These can help stimulate the body's own hormone production or directly support sperm development. Interestingly, there's also some research suggesting that phosphodiesterase 5 inhibitors, drugs typically used for erectile dysfunction like sildenafil, might actually improve certain semen parameters in some men, possibly by improving blood flow or reducing oxidative stress.
Oh, that's unexpected.
It is. And antioxidant therapy is gaining traction too. Supplementing with things like vitamin C, vitamin E, selenium, coenzyme Q10, melatonin, sometimes ibuprofen. The idea is to combat that oxidative stress we keep mentioning, which damages sperm.
Protecting the sperm from damage.
Exactly. And of course, a fundamental part of medical management is identifying and treating any underlying medical conditions contributing to the infertility, like managing diabetes or treating infections.
Makes sense. What about surgical options?
Surgery remains a key treatment for certain causes. Varicocele repair, called varicocelectomy, is quite common and can significantly improve sperm parameters for many men. It can sometimes even be more cost-effective in the long run than repeated RT cycles. For men with very low sperm count, severe oligospermia, or no sperm in the ejaculate, azoospermia, there are surgical sperm retrieval techniques. TZ, PISA, micro-Ts, these allow doctors to extract sperm directly from the testes or epididymis.
Micro-Ts.
Yes, microsurgical Ts. It uses a high-powered microscope during the surgery and is particularly effective for finding small pockets of sperm production in men with non-obstructive azoospermia, where the problem is sperm production itself.
I see. More precise.
Exactly. Other surgeries can correct blockages in the ejaculatory ducts, turd, or reverse previous vasectomies procedures called vasovasostomy or vasoepididymostomy.
So lots of surgical tools too. And then there's assisted reproductive technology, RT, things like IVF.
Right. ART is crucial when other treatments aren't enough or aren't suitable. Intrauterine insemination, or IUI, where prepared sperm is placed directly into the uterus, can work for milder male factor issues or unexplained infertility.
Okay.
But for more significant male factor problems, in vitro fertilization, IVF, combined with intracytoplasmic sperm injection, ICSI, is often the go-to.
How does ICSI work exactly?
With ICSI, the embryologist selects a single, seemingly healthy sperm and injects it directly into the cytoplasm of a mature egg using a very fine needle. This bypasses many potential barriers to fertilization, like poor motility or difficulty penetrating the egg.
Wow. One sperm, one egg.
Pretty much. And there are even more advanced sperm selection techniques now, like MSI or PICSI, which use higher magnification or biochemical properties to try and pick the absolute best sperm for ICSI, potentially improving success rates.
Okay. What if there's just no usable sperm, even with retrieval?
In cases of untreatable male sterility, using donor sperm is a viable option for couples wanting to conceive. And sperm cryopreservation, or sperm banking, that's incredibly important.
Freezing sperm.
Yes. It's vital for fertility preservation for men facing medical treatments like chemotherapy or radiation that could damage their fertility, or before vasectomy, or even for men with progressively declining sperm quality. And freezing techniques like vitrification have improved a lot, leading to better sperm survival rates after thawing.
So quite a range of established treatments. What about things on the horizon? Emerging or experimental therapies?
This is where it gets really cutting edge, though mostly still in research phases. Stem cell therapy holds promise, particularly for men with azoospermia due to production failure. The idea is to use stem cells to regenerate sperm-producing cells in the testes.
Regenerating sperm production.
Wow.
Yeah.
Gene editing technologies like CRISPR-Cas9 are being explored as a potential way to correct specific genetic defects that cause infertility. Huge ethical considerations there, of course, but the potential is significant.
Gene editing. Okay. What else?
There's research into exosome therapy using tiny vesicles released by cells to deliver therapeutic molecules to improve sperm function or motility. Also, personalized medicine approaches, maybe using nanoparticles to deliver drugs more effectively to the testes. And experimental RT techniques are being investigated, like mitochondrial replacement therapy, MRT, sometimes called three-parent IVF, though primarily aimed at mitochondrial disease. It touches on egg health. And in vitro gametogenesis, IVG, the idea of creating sperm or eggs in the lab from other cell types, like skin cells, still very early days for IVG.
Creating sperm in a lab. That sounds like science fiction.
It does, but labs are working on it. And AI isn't just for diagnosis, it's also being applied to andrological surgery to help predict outcomes or potentially guide robotic assistance for greater precision in the future.
AI in surgery too.
But it's really important to stress most of these emerging therapies need much more research, validation, and safety testing before they could become mainstream clinical options.
Right. Exciting possibilities, but still a way off.
Yeah.
Okay, we've covered causes, diagnosis, treatments. Let's circle back to prevention. What can men actively do to protect their fertility?
A lot of it comes back to that healthy lifestyle foundation we talked about. Maintaining a healthy weight through a balanced diet and regular exercise is really key.
The diet specifics again.
Focus on fruits, vegetables, whole grains, nuts, seeds, lean protein like fish and poultry. Limit processed meats, high-fat dairy, excessive sugar, and maybe excessive soy intake, though the soy evidence is a bit mixed.
Okay, what else?
Quitting smoking is non-negotiable. Avoid vaping too. Limiting alcohol consumption to moderate levels is advisable. Definitely avoid recreational drugs and especially anabolic steroids.
Right, the steroids shutdown effect.
Exactly. Managing stress through techniques like exercise, mindfulness, or hobbies is important. Getting adequate quality sleep is crucial for hormone regulation.
Sleep matters.
It does. Avoid prolonged scrotal heat exposure, so maybe looser underwear, taking breaks from sitting, limiting hot tubs and saunas. Try to minimize exposure to known environmental toxins where possible, both at home and at work. Think about filtering water, choosing safer personal care products, being aware of workplace hazards.
Be more aware of your environment.
Yes. Practicing safe sex to prevent STIs that can damage the reproductive tract is also important. And be cautious with supplements. Many make claims about boosting fertility, but the evidence is often weak. Always talk to a doctor before starting any supplements.
Good advice. Don't self-treat.
Definitely not. And fundamentally, if you and your partner are having trouble conceiving, seek medical advice sooner rather than later. Don't wait years. Early evaluation can make a big difference. And again, sperm banking is a really important consideration for any man about to undergo medical treatments that might impair fertility.
Pause ahead if you know treatment is coming. Okay, so wrapping this all up, we've dived deep into male infertility. It's clear the rising rates are complex, a mix of environment, lifestyle, underlying health. It's definitely concerning.
It is. The acceleration since 2000 is particularly striking.
But, on the other hand, the progress in understanding the causes, in diagnosis, and the expanding treatment options, from lifestyle changes right through to advanced RT and potential future therapies, does offer real hope.
Absolutely. And it underscores how much individual choices and preventative measures can potentially impact fertility health.
Yeah, that really stood out to me too, how everyday things, from the air you breathe to the food you eat, might be playing a part, and it's not just one big dramatic cause for most people.
It's often multifactorial, a combination of hits, perhaps, which makes prevention and early intervention even more important.
So for everyone listening, maybe take a moment to think about this information. How might it be relevant to your own health, your choices, maybe your future plans? And here's a final thought to leave you with. Given that male infertility is clearly increasing, and it's driven by so many different factors, environmental, lifestyle, medical, what do you think? What societal shifts or what kind of research do we most urgently need to focus on to really tackle this global health challenge effectively?
That's the big question, isn't it? Where do we put our resources? Policy changes, more research into specific environmental links, better public health education. It's a complex puzzle.
It really is. Okay, we've just taken a deep dive into male infertility. What stood out to you? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Head over to the comments section. Share what you found interesting, any questions you still have, or even your own experiences if you feel comfortable. Let's keep this important conversation going.